Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. On this beautiful summer evening, my name is Modest Ruciński, and I'm very happy to welcome you at the awards ceremony of the Zbigniew Herbert International Literary Award for 2024. I would also like to welcome everybody who is joining us online.
Jest to już 12. edycja nagrody, ale tym razem bardzo wyjątkowa, ponieważ w tym roku obchodzimy stulecie urodzin Zbigniewa Herberta. Rozpoczniemy więc dzisiejszą uroczystość od
tonight's ceremony with a poem by the patron of our award, and I would like to invite Ryszard Krynicki and Tomasz Różycki, both esteemed poets in their own right, to read selected poems by Zbigniew Herbert.
Pan od przyrody.
The biology teacher.
Nie mogę przypomnieć sobie jego twarzy. Stawał wysoko nade mną, na długich, rozstawionych nogach. Widziałem złoty łańcuszek, popielaty surdut i chudą szyję, do której przyszpilony był nieżywy krawat. On pierwszy pokazał nam nogę zdechłej żaby, która dotykana igłą gwałtownie się kurczy. On nas wprowadził przez złoty binokular w intymne życie naszego pradziadka, pantofelka. On przyniósł ciemne ziarno i powiedział: sporyż. Z jego namowy w 10. roku życia zostałem ojcem, gdy po napiętym oczekiwaniu z kasztana zanurzonego w wodzie ukazał się żółty kiełek i wszystko rozśpiewało się wokoło. W 2. roku wojny zabili pana od przyrody, łobuzy od historii. Jeśli poszedł do nieba, może chodzi teraz na długich promieniach odzianych w szare pończochy z ogromną siatką, zieloną skrzynką, wesoło dyndającą z tyłu. Ale jeśli nie poszedł do góry, kiedy na leśnej ścieżce spotykam żuka, który gramoli się na kopiec piasku, podchodzę, trzastam nogami i mówię: dzień dobry, panie profesorze, pozwoli pan, że mu pomogę. Przenoszę go delikatnie i długo za nim patrzę, aż ginie w ciemnym pokoju profesorskim na końcu korytarza liści. Pan Kogito szuka rady. Tyle książek, słowników, opasłe encyklopedie, ale nie ma kto poradzić. Zbadano słońce, księżyc, gwiazdy, zgubiono mnie. Moja dusza odmawia pociechy wiedzy. Wędruję tedy nocą po drogach ojców i oto miasteczko Bracław wśród czarnych słoneczników. To miejsce, które opuściliśmy. To miejsce, które krzyczy. Jest szabas. Jak zawsze w szabas ukazuje się nowe niebo. Szukam cię, rabi. Nie ma go tutaj, mówią Hasydzi. Jest w świecie Szeolu. Miał piękną śmierć, mówią Hasydzi. Bardzo piękną. Tak jakby przeszedł z jednego kąta do drugiego kąta. Cały czarny. W ręku miał torę płonącą. Szukam cię, rabi. za którym firmamentem ukryłeś mądre ucho. Boli mnie serce, Rabi, mam kłopoty. Może by mi poradził Rabi Nachman, ale jak mam go znaleźć wśród tylu popiołów?
Dobry wieczór Państwu. Ja wybrałem
Good evening. I have
pierwszy wiersz
selected
do
as
Ryszarda
the first
Krynickiego
poem
list.
to Ryszard Krynicki, a letter.
Niewiele zostanie, Ryszardzie, naprawdę niewiele z poezji tego szalonego wieku. Na pewno Rilke, Eliot, kilku innych dostojnych szamanów, którzy znali sekret zaklinania słów, formy odpornej na działanie czasu, bez czego nie ma frazy godnej pamiętania, a mowa jest jak piasek. Nasze zeszyty szkolne, szczerze udręczone, ze śladem potu, łez, krwi, będą dla korektorki wiecznej jak tekst piosenki pozbawiony nut. Szlachetnie prawy, aż nadto oczywisty. Uwierzyliśmy zbyt łatwo, że piękno nie ocala. Prowadzi lekkomyślnych od snu do snu na śmierć. Nikt z nas nie potrafił obudzić topolowej driady, czytać pismo chmur. Dlatego po śladach naszych nie przejdzie jednorożec. Nie wskrzesimy okrętów w zatoce, pawia, róży. Została nam nagość i stoimy nadzy. Po prawej, lepszej stronie tryptyku ostateczny sąd. Na chude barki wzięliśmy sprawy publiczne. Walkę z tyranią, kłamstwem, zapisy cierpienia, lecz przeciwników, przyznasz, mieliśmy nikczemnie małych. Czy warto zatem zniżać świętą mowę do bełkotu z trybuny, do czarnej piany gazet? Tak mało radości. Córki bogów w naszych wierszach, Ryszardzie, za mało świetlistych zmierzchów, luster, wieńców, uniesienia. Nic, tylko ciemne psalmodie, jąkania animuli, urny popiołów w spalonym ogrodzie. Jakich sił trzeba, by na przekór losom, wyrokom dziejów, ludzkiej nieprawości, w ogrojcu zdrady szeptać cicha nocy. Jakich sił ducha trzeba, by wykrzesać, bijąc na oślep rozpaczą o rozpacz, iskierkę światła, hasło pojednania. Ażeby wiecznie trwał taneczny krąg na gęstej trawie. Święcono narodziny dziecka i każdy początek, dary powietrza, ziemi i ognia i wody. Ja tego nie wiem, mój drogi. Dlatego przesyłam Tobie nocą te sowie zagadki, uścisk serdeczny, ukłon mego cienia. Drugi wiersz pod tytułem Prośba. Ojcze bogów i Ty, mój patronie Hermesie, zapomniałem Was prosić, a teraz już późno, o dar wysoki i tak wstydliwy jak modlitwa, o gładką skórę, bujne włosy, migdałowe powieki. Niech się stanie, by całe moje życie mieściło się bez reszty w hrabiny popesku szkatułce pamiątek, na której wyobrażony pasterz na skraju Dąbrowy wydmuchuje z fujarki perłowe powietrze. a w środku nieład, spinka, stary po ojcu zegarek, ślepy pierścionek, składana morska luneta, zasuszone listy, złoty napis na kubku wabiący do wód Marienbadu, laska laku, batystowa chusteczka, znak poddania twierdzy, trochę pleśni, trochę mgły. Ojcze bogów i Ty, mój patronie Hermesie, zapomniałem Was prosić o ranki, południa, wieczory płoche i bez znaczenia, o mało duszy, mało sumienia, lekką głowę i o krok taneczny. Jest też wiersz, który został wybrany przez dzisiejszego laureata. To jest wiersz pod tytułem Pan Kogito obserwuje w lustrze swoją twarz. Pan Kogito obserwuje w lustrze swoją twarz. Kto pisał nasze twarze? Na pewno Ospa. Kaligraficznym piórem znacząc swoje O. Lecz po kim mam podwójny podbródek? Po jakim żarłoku, gdy cała moja dusza wzdychała do ascezy? Dlaczego oczy osadzone tak blisko? Wszak to on, nie ja, wypatrywał wśród chaszczy najazdu Wenedów. Uszy zbyt odstające, dwie muszle ze skóry. Zapewne spadek po praszczurze, który łowił echo dudniącego pochodu mamutów przez stepy. Czoło niezbyt wysokie, myśli bardzo mało. Kobiety, złoto, ziemia, nie dać się strącić z konia. Książę myślał za nich, a wiatr niósł po drogach. Darli palcami mury i nagle z wielkim krzykiem spadali w próżnię, by powrócić we mnie. A przecież kupowałem w salonach sztuki, pudry, mikstury, maście, szminki na szlachetność. Przykładałem do oczu marmur, zieleń Veroneza, Mozartem nacierałem uszy, doskonaliłem nozdrza wonią starych książek. Przed lustrem twarz odziedziczona, worek, gdzie fermentują dawne mięsa, żądze i grzechy średniowieczne, paleolityczny głód i strach. Jabłko upada przy jabłoni, w łańcuch gatunków spięte ciało. Tak to przegrałem turniej z twarzą.
Bardzo serdecznie dziękuję panu Ryszardowi Krynickiemu i Tomaszowi Różyckiemu
for reading poems by Zbigniew Herbert. And now Maria Dzieduszycka, the president of the Zbigniew Herbert Foundation, will say a few words. And we want to thank her for inviting us all here today.
Dobry wieczór.
Good evening. I'll begin with a brief word of explanation. Most of you surely know this beautiful portrait by Zbigniew Herbert, because there is only one painter who was capable of doing it. It was Józef Czapski, who painted this portrait of Herbert in 1957 during Zbigniew Herbert's first visit to Paris. Katarzyna Herbert has given given this portrait to our foundation. We're taking good care of it, and for the time being, we wanted to show it to you just on screen. And I want to welcome everyone on behalf of the Zbigniew Herbert Foundation. Katarzyna Herbert always says that Herbert should be read. So, when we were wondering how to emphasize that this ceremony is part of the Zbigniew Herbert centenary, we believed that his poetry would say it best. So thank you very much to Ryszard Krynicki and Tomasz Różycki for being with us, for giving these wonderful poems new life. We are organizing the Herbert Centenary, deeply convinced that the work of Mr. Cogito, the author of Mr. Cogito, is still alive, is still vital. It affects our thoughts, our imagination. It asks questions and riddles that we should try to answer. You are all invited to a 3-day celebration of Herbert's 100th birthday, which will last between October 27 through October 29 in the renovated Palace of the Republic, opened 3 days ago to the public, and I would like to welcome and recognize Mr. Tomasz Makowski, the director of the National Library, our strategic partner in organizing the celebrations. Meanwhile, before the 29th of October, in Poland and abroad, there will be numerous events to celebrate the Herbert Centenary, organized by our partners, by Polish and foreign culture institutions. You will be informed of every event, and you will receive invitations to attend. Today's ceremony would not have been possible without the support of several institutions and individuals. We are very grateful to all of them. First of all, I would like to thank Jolanta Zabarnik-Nowakowska, particularly. I would like to thank the PZU Foundation, which is the strategic partner of the Zbigniew Herbert Award for the 8th year running. Without your support, without your foundation, we would not be able to award this prize, so thank you very, very much. I would also like to thank the Trzy Trąby Foundation, which for several years now has been supporting our foundation. I want to thank our regular partners, the Adam Mickiewicz Institute and Polish Radio. We want to thank Polish Radio for being our media patron, and we want to thank the management and the entire team of Teatr Polski, this venue. We want to thank them for their understanding, their patience, and their wonderful cooperation. Thank you for your attention, and enjoy your evening. Thank you very much, Maria Dziduszycka. And now, ladies and gentlemen, before we hear the laudation to the Laureate, let me remind you who the jury was. Krystyna Dąbrowska from Poland. Edward Hirsch from the United States of America. Michael Kruger from Germany. Mercedes Monmani from Spain. And Aleš Steger from Slovenia, who was the chairman of the jury. I'm sorry, I have a bit of stage fright. And we will ask Mr. Steger to introduce our laureate and to read the laudation.
Ladies and gentlemen, esteemed lovers of poetry, it is with great pleasure that I announce the laureate of the Zbigniew Herbert International Literary Award for 2024, Yang Lian. Lian's poetry embodies the steady flow of a river, strong, unwavering, and deeply connected to the roots and landscapes of his life. Like the Yangtze, the Sydney River, the Thames or the Spree River. His verses meander through the currents of history and human experience, shaped by the tumultuous events that have defined his journey. Born in 1955 in a family of Chinese opera owners and diplomats, Lian's upbringing in Beijing was interrupted by the upheaval of the Cultural Revolution in 1966. Sent to Changping country for re-education through labor, where he undertook a variety of tasks, including digging graves, and endured hardships that would later infuse his work with resilience and depth. In the aftermath of the Tiananmen Square massacre, Lian chose exile, seeking refuge in distant lands. From Australia to London and Berlin, he navigated the waters of displacement, and the while owning his craft as a poet. While politics undoubtedly influenced his art and perspective, Lian's poetry transcends mere protest, drawing inspiration from the thousands of years of tradition of Chinese verse. His poems are all but political pamphlets. They are a highly refined and linguistically balanced movement between the pain of the world and the impossibility of language. His words flow like a mighty river, fluid and expansive, carrying echoes of the past and glimpses of the future. In this respect, his works are deeply connected to the legacy of Zbigniew Herbert, who brought back to life different myths and traditions, forging a strong bond between past and present. As a voice against totalitarianism and state control, Lian advocated for the marginalized and oppressed. Through his poetry, he shed light on issues ranging from systematic exploitation to the erosion of freedom of speech. Yang Lian once wrote in an outstanding essay about the craft of poetry that poetry is basically space. A floating space, I would add. We, the readers of his poems, are argonauts of the 21st century, embarking on an unpredictable journey through the possible and seemingly impossible of language. Today, we honor Yang Lian with the Zbigniew Herbert International Prize for Poetry 2024, recognizing his contributions to the literary ocean of our present world. May his poetry continue to flow like a river, guiding us to the depths of human experience.
And to give the prize, We would like to invite Madam Jolanta Zabarnik-Nowakowska, the president of the PZU Foundation, the strategic partner of the Zbigniew Herbert International Literary Award, and Mr. Tomasz Różycki, member of the board of the foundation. Mr. Różycki will now say a few words. Ladies and gentlemen, it is with great pleasure that I listened to the Laudation. I believe that the International Zbigniew Herbert Literary Award is becoming more universal every year, just as Herbert's poetry is universal. And I think that members of the jury have learned the message, the lesson contained in that poetry, a call to be independent and look for freedom. Poetry is so independent that it doesn't provide any answers. It refuses to answer the owlish puzzles it poses, leaving us to answer questions regarding our own freedom. It is a dissident poetry, which is why I'm especially happy that this year our winner, that this year the jury has chosen Young Lien because this is also the centennial of Zbigniew Herbert.
Prosimy teraz o wręczenie statuetki. Nagrodę stanowi statuetka autorstwa pracowni Szaroszyk
which
i
was
Rycerski
designed by Szaroszyk and Rycerski architects.
Laureat otrzyma także
The
czek.
laureate will also receive a check.
Laureat otrzyma
The
także
laureate
czek o
will also
wartości
receive a
50
check
000
for
dolarów.
$50,000.
Fundatorem nagrody
The award has been sponsored by the PZU Foundation, the strategic partner of the Zbigniew Herbert International Literary Award.
A teraz prosimy
And
laureata.
now the laureate Young Lien will say a few words.
Okay. Thank you. Wow. Dziękuję. Mr. Herbert. And dziękuję for all friends here. I think this is a great opportunity to me, but also to Chinese poetry, to meet you here. And because the poetry is the meeting point of our life, but also of our language. In that case, I prepare a small speech which titled Questioning is the only tradition of poetry. In 2017, I was invited to Moscow International Poetry Festival. I gave a lecture, readings in Pushkin Museum and also in Tsvetaeva Museum. They both gave the important influence to the contemporary Chinese literature. In 2022, when Russia invaded Ukraine, I asked myself, to this invasion, who are crying? My answer was to cry together with the people who sit here and the victims in Ukraine were just Pushkin and Tsvetaeva. They watched once again the destroy of their own culture and their own dream. The doom of autocratic system has changed its mask, but returned once again. After the end of Cold War in 1989, the former Eastern European countries, which ruled by the Communist Party or communism, becoming what I joked, a silent hole. Suddenly, they left the focus of attention of the world, but fallen to the border of the economy, politics, and thinking, and becoming the orphans of history. The blank confusions has made a big group of sang-froid bystanders. But to observe and thinking this world which abandoned ourselves, can it find a better direction? The war between Russia and Ukraine is not only a disaster of reality, but it's also a revelation for thinkers. Within 1 second, it has completed the nightmarish jigsaw puzzle of the world. Now, in China, the Cultural Revolution style of control has returned. The illusion of reform is finished. The autocratic system returned its normal and inevitable. In Europe, the World War II version of Crow Massacre has shown again. The Western countries has been so indecision when they face to the challenge of Putin. And the nationalist and religious extremes has appeared everywhere in the world. All values are so confused that made our mind a vacuum. Then, to scratch the interest in the front of our eyes seems became the only choice. The selfishness, cynicism, and the profit first, the three words has painted the ugly portrait of the world today. The doom is always under our feet. Faced to this world which fallen down to the cliff like a car lost control, who is not feeling so diseased, scary, hopeless, but at the same time, powerless? The nightmare, gone and back. Faced to it, what can we do? What can poetry do? For the series of big question marks, is there any answer? And where are those big question marks bring us to? Here, I must come back to a name of Qu Yuan, who lived 2,300 years ago, and the very first name of poet recorded in the entire Chinese poetry tradition, under his splendid epic, Heavenly questions. This poem used nearly 200 questions, run through the mythology, history, reality, until the poet himself, layers by layers deeper, but without any answer. It began like that. Said, who passes down the story of far off, ancient beginning of things? How can we be sure what it was like before the sky above and earth below had taken shape? A word of said set the whole history inside of the language and human being. The beginning of time, the thinking of space are no longer dependent on gods, but focused at the question of cultures. Every deeper question answered the questions previously. After all, Qu Yuan provided a forever image to poets, the questioner. And the heavenly questions provided a forever tradition to poetry, the tradition of questioning. It's different from the countless Chinese lyrics, but opened up another tradition of thinking poetry. And this tradition ran through the time and space, shows the extra important meaning today. I believe when the author of Mr. Cogito hear the words of heavenly questions and thinking poetry, he will smile knowingly, because questioning is the origin of all thinking. Questioning the world, questioning one's self, deepen the questioning to the world inside of questioning one's self. This energy of thinking provided the essence of poetry. So I think, therefore I am, could be expressed even clearly. I question, therefore I am. The character of my own writing could be summed up like the self-awakening of poetry. The Cultural Revolution disaster in the last century made all Chinese people continually question whose fault throughout the whole 1980s. From politics to the history, to the tradition, to the way of thinking, until everyone's self. From the collective to the individual, the researching evils deepen layers by layers. The questioning and the introspection turned us actively becoming the other of our own. At the same time, created the deeper poetics. The title of this speech, Questioning is the only tradition of poetry came from here. To face to the spiritual crisis which we never experienced before, the calling of thinking poetry becoming even more urgent. Between the many cultures, which is often different, even conflicted, is there any meeting point? What is the meeting point? I wanted to say, yes, it is. The meeting point is just this word, the question. I question, therefore I am. Between the real cultures, there's no struggle, but competition. What they competed upon is the capacity that reflect upon one's self through self-questioning. To do researching evil to myself and discover the inner darkness, admit it, reflect it, and transcendent it, therefore building up a good circling inside of the culture. The self-renewal is the DNA of every modern culture. It's not represented the weakness of culture, but represented the confidence and the strength. Oppositely, if only knowing to destroy the competition with the blood and the fire can only fall into the dead note of endless hate. In the article, Poetry and Modernity, Mr. Herbert snares at the poetry whose mission is stand and fight on the proper side of the so-called barricade. Here, he finds the real matter. All poems, through the questionings, aimed the same target, the depth of humanity. Poetry forever faced to the challenge of reality and forever deepen it. Poetry never leaves the reality, but also never simplifies the reality, becoming the kitsch slogans. It's excited the unique way of writing with the depth of thinking which never existed before. Therefore, all poetry masterpieces universally could be recognized clearly. To point out the thinking poetry is proposing a standard of judgment. It is function to both contemporary Chinese poetry and all poetry in the world universally. To say directly, I feel a profound crisis. The contemporary poetry performance quite weak, even lost language when we face to the spiritual crisis now. To recycle the old slogans of Cold War ideologies, to do the propagandas of a nationalist or religious identity like mid-age way, is only continue the hollow words plus play the bloody game of power. But faced to the challenge of selfishness, cynicism, profit first, where are the poet's sensitivities? Where is the spirit of questioning in the heavenly questions? Where is the Mr. Cogito's Pebble-like piercing and calm observations? It's pity. At this very moment, when the human being need thinking desperately, our squirt is just failed. To deepen, to excite the thinking poetry with the deepened questions, to check out the taste of poetry with the real experience. Mr. Cogito was a model. His every line of poems had the solid root of life. This is also the principle of my own writing. Whatever how strong the poetry concept is, whatever how far the language experimentation went to, its foundation must be real life experience, can be felt, can be seen, even can be touched. Poetry never just play as shallowly a surrealist game, but to discover the deep reality with the poetical understanding. I only give the credit to the poetry with real root. The root is the true life experience which check out the contemporary writing, reading, even translation precisely. The often pity was the more empty of original, the easier of translation. Without control of the real experience, of course, the trickery and the guessing game can do whatever they like. Finally, let me end my speech with a series of selected questions from the heavenly questions. Since none could penetrate that murk when darkness and light were yet undivided, how do we know about the chaos of insubstantial forms? From my own poems, A Tower Built Downward. Is there really an abyss? Where can this fall still fall to? From another poem of myself, Anti-Requiem. The world of death is infinite, but which departed soul can be at rest? Brother, where are the smallest dying words frustrated? The last poem of mine, question about the demon Taotir. To punt away, what beauty is not bloody? how many suns don't rise or set in the darkness of naming? Do bestial and human faces gently clasp a vapor? Has unutterable language finally fulfilled the sacrifice? Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah. Dziękuję. I forgot to say the original. Yeah. Okay. Again, I think this is a great honor to be here and a great exciting for me to receive the prize, the award of the Mr. Herbert International Literature Award, because this immediately brought the Chinese situation, which I experienced from, I was born, and the international situation, especially in the Central Europe, now together. So my talk here, I think, is I hope that is a meeting point, which bring the energies from both sides, but jointly together. With the wonderful friend in the organizer of the award, and they asked me to read a poem. And yes, after being thinking about it, I decided to read just one poem, which is titled, I mentioned already in my talk, Researching Evil. This poem was written in the 2022 when Russia invaded Ukraine happened. And that immediately reminded me all these nightmares from the Cultural Revolution in China and also the autocratic systems in Soviet Union and was also in Eastern European countries. Almost at the same time, there was another tragedy happened in China. In one of the rather richer provinces named Jiangsu province, a poor woman has been found in a countryside house. And he was hijacked or something from another poor province and sold to a farmer in this area and been who knows how many times raped. After all, she was the mother of 8 sons, and but after when she was found, her teeth was pulled out, and her tongue was cut out, because people worried she will spoke about where she came from, what happened in her life, and so on like that. And I was so sad when I think about her as a mother. And if a mother had been treated like that, and what about her and our children's? What about our next generations? And what about the future of the country and of the culture? So that tragedy happened in China, and the tragedy happened in Ukraine, the massacres, and this seems very far, things happened far away, but almost like from a different entrance came to meet in the same route, which is to me, it was the darkness of humanity, because all those troubles had been made with our own hands. And this was the origin of this poem. And thanks for Johanna, the translator here, and she translated the poem into Polish. So therefore you can see the poem here in your own language and hear me in the Chinese original. I will read the poem for you, but I hope your eyes look at the screen. Okay, here is the poem. 罪恶研究，白雪也可以是一架魔鬼的机器，碾压一个生命的多少次死，一次死释放的多少鬼魂。普希金的眼泪，兹维塔耶娃的眼泪，堆在铜像肩头，不融化的金属压着虚无的诗韵，拽过摆放成空壳的心。一首诗也可以是，只能是诗的万人坑，埋葬锁着繁殖的欲哭无泪。相隔万里的同一个早春，钉进一根锁骨，一个灾难淹没另一个灾难，被回收的血肉回收进遗忘。多少鬼魂仍在爬出道绝一空的坟墓，叼着一动不动的断壁残垣，让我们以为一个绝望的年代是新的。这条泥泞而呆滞的路，为什么没有尽头？这片苍绿的针叶林，眼神冰冷，为什么和发白的太阳一样，只剩腐烂的意义？俊俏的卡佳娜达莎，紧贴胸口，一块弹片像一枚刚采摘的血蘑菇，这是你们等到的归来吗？一只从别人故乡惊飞的鸟，是否也被赋予了托梦的能力？大眼眶的骷髅，笔直瞪着炸碎的街，唯一问：为什么要毁了这一切？这向下的阶梯还得走多久，才够抵达孩子们的惊恐？一团爆裂火球似的真空悬在心底，莫非世界早被捉瞎了？母亲身上那条甬道，通向铁链，通向谎言。一架广袤无垠的大钢琴，每天砸成碎片。海涛拍打，人的芨芨草在风中颤抖。母亲最卑微的词，最肮脏的词，通向雪屋的地层。又一个早晨，目瞪口呆，看着他被扣在杀戮的母语上，看着我们扣在屈辱的防空洞里，同样衣衫褴褛，匍匐在地，刮掉人的泡沫。期待的甬道让我们目睹一条押送之路，开挖在自己身上，尸骸跌入尸骸，永远空空荡荡。听啊，哀嚎的风声没有历史，一个拯救不了母亲的物种，甚至不配有真的末日。而这正是末日。一条蛆虫穿戴无数灰色皱缩的名字，每块石头上蹲坐成群流离的鬼魂。这是春天， 雪屋的噩耗比绿叶抽芽更快。雪屋覆盖雪屋，我们干透的表面几乎等同虚构，一种众目睽睽下的失传。家的幻影比汪着泪的眼窝消散得更快。母亲被用尽的阴道还得继续被用尽，绘制一颗星球从死到死没有距离的轨道。永不过去的3月问：真有一个倒退吗？春天残留姣好的脸，清清楚楚被摸着，像个假的灰烬。一桩罪，不记得开始，只记得影子的重量，不填满死囚，只填满人形的弹坑，止步于一只丢弃路边的拖鞋的形式。红色按钮上的脏手，青年毁灭的花蕊，碾转餐桌上的话题，杯盘玲珑一响，遗体似的舌头舔着烧焦孩子的火。怯懦那么美味儿，留下你的躯壳，让它安安静静去腐烂，留下你的沉默，枪炸自己的肺，留下1分1秒漏掉的命。它什么也不是，除了罪恶本身，凝视一只桃花的疯狂，恰如手指缔造的疯狂。3月在坍塌，3月汗水淋淋，看着我们被拴在亡灵的床上，比亡灵更落入无处。没有比无辜更无耻的词，没有土里伸出的一只小手没抓住我的体味儿，没有一条铁脐带没拽出骨灰色的河流。他不知别的未来，除了消失本身，消失在一只桃花的触目惊心里，层层叠叠的艳丽，手掌贴满送别的车窗，一声口哨吹走一切。这是一首无法写下的诗，不可能之诗。这首诗里无人，只剩所有人，面对罪的镜子，恶的镜子，李商隐的眼泪与我们无关的流淌，谁是谁的赝品？镜中诅咒的幻象，认出唯有分裂是真的，在一块礁石上撞碎，在一场大雾中弥合。孱弱的回声，抹去又抹去，从白雪到桃花，听着没有内心的银额。一个历史从空的躯壳起身，无痛地学出自己。我们从来就这样活着。金奎啊。Thank you very much. Dziękuję.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much. Sit down. Thank you very much, Mr. Jan Klian. Szanowni Państwo, dzisiejszy wieczór oprócz poezji
apart from poetry, we will have a concert by the New Vibes duo, Piotr Kopiec on accordion and Sebastian Wypych on bass. They will take us on a musical journey, playing classical music, tango, film scores, and open improvisation, a little bit of each.
Mała techniczna przerwa to jest nasz właśnie zespół Teatru Polskiego, ekipa techniczna.
Our stagehands are setting up the space from Teatr Polski.
Panowie, zapraszam.
Gentlemen, hit it. Good afternoon. We're very happy, ladies and gentlemen. Young Lien, it's an honor to be able to play at such a special occasion on this anniversary year. Zbigniew, Herbert, and Young Lien are both travelers, so we'll also, across the world, so we'll also take you on a journey spanning classical music, tango, because poetry and music are often associated. They say that music lends color or paints poetry, and poetry infuses music.
Jeszcze raz brawo. Szanowni Państwo, nasz naprawdę wzniosły i piękny letni wieczór
On
dobiega
this
końca.
beautiful,
Bardzo
warm
dziękuję
summer
wszystkim
evening,
uczestnikom
it is
gościom
time to
za
say
przybycie
goodbye. I
tutaj.
want to thank all our
Dziękuję
wonderful
wszystkim,
guests
którzy
for
oglądają
being
nas
here
przez
with us
internet.
tonight. Thanks
No i
to
cóż,
everybody joining us
zapraszam na
online.
wręczenie nagrody
And
Herberta
join us
za rok.
next year
Życzę wszystkim
for
i sobie
the
również
Zbigniew Herbert
dobrego wieczoru.
International Literary Award 2025. And now, a very good evening to you all.